give
Sure.
you, get
No
your
worries.
permission before I do anything
No problems.
with it. Yeah. So yeah, please tell me, and I'll kind of let you know what I'm interested in, but you might want to tell you what.
Well, all I can do is I just thought it was worth letting you know what are the things that have made learner analytics useful, and people are really willing to use them. So one of the big things we did was in Moodle we created something known as the Student Engagement Report.
Yep.
The Student Engagement Report divided quite clearly what was active learning versus passive learning.
Yep.
And it meant from a teacher's point of view that when an auditor came in, the data was used in a way that it should have been, or it became secondary rather than primary.
Okay, I mean, I'm interested in that because that was one of the things I was interested in asking about.
Yes.
How has it made a difference as a vet organisation?
Well, I'll give you a really good example. Last year we had a massive audit, and the people that were using what we call the dashboards, and I'll show you the dashboards, they had their audit data over to them within an hour, and those that weren't using it were still there at 10 o'clock that night.
Yeah.
So that word went around the whole institute in the speed of light. And so what I did was I created, and I'm going to show you some of these pickies. What I did was I started to think about disruptive technologies. I'm really interested in disruptive technologies, and I'd call disruptive pedagogies too, where we can start to build solution-based products for problems that people often don't know or can't articulate are actually a problem, right?
Yep.
So what I did was about, you might have even been there, I was at Moodle Mood about 2.5, 3 years ago. Someone did this fantastic presentation. I looked at it and I went, great idea, and then proceeded to create this dashboard project, and this has changed the way we do all our analytics completely.
Yeah.
Let me just find it. I'm not going to last year's. Okay, this will be a good one. Right, so a couple of different things we did around the data. One was we tracked the student experience, and then what we did. So this is here, have a look, Howard.
Yeah.
See the student dashboards here? And the teacher dashboards. Have you seen these?
Yeah, I have seen them.
Okay, so what that did was that meant that we could go through and we could track who'd actually done them. What we could also do is we could track what information was being put up there. What that then fed into was the student engagement reports, which meant if they had their audit data there, it was perfect.
Yep.
That was fantastic. But what that also then grew into was we then have created a dashboard for resource development, which we can track that data. And then the third part is we're now tracking data around assessments and validation and gradebook usage.
Yep.
So straight away you've got this whole integrated approach where the teachers can self-serve all of this data, right? All self-serve. That meant that when the audit came through, because the dashboards gave a consistent approach for the students, because they really wanted the consistency approach, they really wanted the basically the focus on assessments and feedback, so we were able to answer what the students wanted. It also meant that data, when it came to audit, they put the report up, the teacher would go, that's the payoff for me. The big payoff for me is it's really easy to update it every 6 months, but the big payoff is I don't have to be stressed out of my brain every time an audit comes because it's there. First time we ran the student engagement reports with Andrew created, it divided the active learning versus passive learning. That whole how many times have they clicked on the course is irrelevant, but I can show you some samples of those student engagement reports. What we also were able to do is that then meant we could pull all of that data from the dashboards in, and this year we've just launched the student at risk dashboard. Student at risk dashboard takes in our SAT online roles, it takes in the dashboard data, assessment downloads, assessment completions, and it means on a daily basis the teachers can check which students have disengaged, both either from a face-to-face point of view, an online point of view, and from an engagement, which we'd say assessment production. So it redlines, it produces very quickly data that tells us if a student is at risk, and retention's so critical now, particularly around funding, but also for lifelong learning opportunities. We're able to pull that data together really quickly. The second part of the Learner at Risk tool we actually developed was we're taking heat stamps on current courses and identifying what the students actually use within the courses. And I love this sort of stuff because it's the students voting with their feet. And when you go to a teacher and you talk about what they're designing, we can tell them where the students are actually looking. What a surprise. Assessments, assessment feedback, videos, active learning. So you can produce your 286 pages of boring crap and they're just not going to touch it, Howard. You know that, I know that. But we can now actually provide that data and it's now informing our learning design process. So a lot more pathways approaches. So that data's been fantastic. Just, I've got to say, that's been brilliant. The other thing is some of the old stuff we've done, which we're still using, and I'll just open this up for you. I've got so many different PowerPoints here and I've just got to remember which ones I've put what in. It's terrible, isn't it? this one probably be a good one. No, that's Lilydale. Is this the Lilydale? I might find ITE. ITE was a good one. Sorry, I do so many presentations now. I feel like I'm a dancing fairy. You know, what I do is I run around and present. Here we go. ITE is the big Singaporean TAFE system.
Yep. We
have a really strong partnership with. So I'll open this up and I'll show you. So the data that we still continue to collect, come on, open up. So we've still got all the normal data.
Yeah.
So this is just a sample of all the reports they can pull out. So this one, we don't use these anymore because I think the thing I'd say with Learner Analytics, 2 to 3 year time frame, it'll die, come up with different analytics, because analytics can be used to drive change. So some of the changes we've driven this year was a focus back in 2011 to 2014, and that was changing the paradigm from passive learning to active learning. So what I did was I produced those reports for the senior educators and the managers, and this is an example of, I think it was ITE or business. It was predominantly passive, and then within a year of those continuous conversations, we had 1,132% increase in assessments and forums being used. So it drove that change with very little finger pointing or forcing. Teachers are so, if the students vote, I would say the data we generate that's most valuable is the students' opinions, and that's where GPS comes in. GPS we pull data from as well, Howard, and that asks the students what they expect and what they want. And so that data you then take to the teaching centres, and if the students' focus is on assessments and active learning, you don't have to tell the teachers what to do. They want to hear their students' voice. One thing they've all got in common is they want to do the right thing by their students. So this data, we stopped doing that last year, and so what we've replaced that with now is, I'll show you another example, the Teaching and Learning Symposium, Teaching and Learning College. Let me just have a look. Actually, no, I should go back. This is the easy way to do it. So this has been a massive change. We're now, most of the projects we work on, according to the CEO, is change management. Our job is change management and cultural change. That's what he believes our area does, and does really, really well, which is fantastic.
That's true,
So what we have in the Teaching and Learning College now, which we launched last year, is not just a video wall and just-in-time training and all the rest of that, but we now, for example, last year I launched a major project for Lilydale. We've done a polysynchronous learning environment out at Lilydale. So we've got links working with WizIQ, working with a full blended learning model, which means what I've done is I've gone and met with each of the centres, unpacked each of the courses, identified what needs to be done in the workplace, what can be done in the classroom, what can be done online, what can be done polysynchronously, and what has to be done with a teacher in place. Unpacked all that, created pods around practical so we can have split classes across 3 locations. It's brilliant, it's really good, a lot of learning to happen. But I had 6 weeks working with the team to design the whole campus around the polysynchronous environment. Then I had to design an education model that would work within that environment. I was given one parameter and it had to be video conference. No negotiation, which is a challenge for our kinesthetic visual learners who, you know. Then what we had to do is we had to upskill 286 staff. Originally it was only 60 staff we were going to upskill, and we ended up with 286 staff attend, which was phenomenal. So I divided into 3 groups, which was introducing the models. That was around pedagogy, the educational rationale, introducing the models, talking about, you know, newest ways of learning and teaching, and stories from the teachers that are doing it well. Second one was around the actual tool. I know it was around rapid onboarding for the students, so around the students' experience. And I introduced something called the educational concierge, which no one I know of has used in the same way that we've done it, which means there's a qualified teacher out there who's a generalist, and they do a personalised learning approach for every single student. They create an individual plan for each of them, they rapidly onboard them, generic competencies, GPS, ASAR, and they meet with them on a monthly basis. They're not a subject matter expert, they're not from biotech, they're not from electrical, but they're a teacher. You know Joan?
Yeah, I do.
Remember Jane? Yeah, she's one of our educational concierges.
She'll be good at it. Yeah.
Oh, she's fantastic. She's really good. They also support the technology, and if there's a student out there in 1 or 2, they'll actually sit in with there and give them that social psychology experience and help them. So that was, and part 3 was the actual technology. Last but not least, so we set up a simulated environment. Julianne did a great job working with IT. We set up a prototype of R2D2, which was I put everything on trolleys. Yep. So big screen, Echo 360, a computer, and it can be pushed around from room to room, so it's flexible. It was only yesterday we finally got the solution actually where we needed it to be. So the teachers came through and did all that training, but 286 of them. But the thing wasn't just about learning about the new Lilydale model. Yeah. It was around actually getting them to think completely differently. Now the reason I'm showing you this is it then meant that I could, for example, tell you at any given time. I'm not sure if this is going to work because we've just completely gutted student web because we've had such a massive reorg. No, it's not going to work. Bugger. Let's see if I've got a good example of it. Oh, that's the learner at risk stuff. Let me see if I've got an example. So anyhow, the reports went out to all the centre managers and it literally had every teacher who's done what training and where. And so every year now I work with Jennifer and usually I pick the 3 PD programs to create the biggest change. Yeah. So a bit like what you're doing with those sessions, you might say that's compulsory for all the teachers, and then you track who attends and who doesn't. You send it through the centre managers, so they've got the knowledge around who's actually part of this change agent program.
Yeah, interesting.
So then what it does is it creates a partnership with you and the centre manager where no longer you're empowering them to actually inform their staff around what a priority is.
Great.
So I still do that mobility and e-learning working party with the teaching centre managers, and I negotiate with them what they see the priorities for my area are. Yep. I tell them what I think they are, and then we have robust discussions. So by the time I launch the major change program, we're all in furious agreement and they feel ownership of it. A big change from where we started, where I couldn't even get a damn meeting with people. Yeah. So the nice part about this is that this particular project here, the teaching centre managers all agreed we were going to do pilot projects, all sorts of things, and they all just went, no, just launch it. Just launch it. Go now. Yeah. So in Student Web, and I'll show you here, I'll just do another version of this. It's what we've really worked towards now is self-serving. Heaps and heaps of self-serving. So I'll go into a course and I'll show you some examples. But all of this then pulls through to them being able to pull the data out. Yep. I don't reckon... this isn't going to give me a lot of data, but anyhow, we'll do it. It'll give you an idea. Gee, it's a bit slow today. So you can get your ACER report on every single student enrolled in this course, what they've done, what their ACSF level is, how that correlates, whether or not they should be doing this course, their engagement analytics, and I'll open one of those up for you, their evidence of participation data, their individual learning plan they can access, the logs, the live logs, activity reports, course participation, activity, and we just keep adding to those reports. They can go in at any given time and access reports on all of the students in their course and in their groups. Probably 50% of the students love it. For staff, but probably I'd say 30% still aren't using it.
Of staff?
Of staff. Okay. Still not using it. So you'll see here, here's your learner at risk data. So here, assessment activity at this stage for this group, 0. Attendance activity, 25%, so that's the rankings. But this is where they're all at, percentages, as they progress through this course. So I can see at any given time, the teacher goes in and weights what so they might say classroom participation is worth 50%, or it might be worth 2%. But they can weight it at the start, so then your learner at risk data is quite, it's quite cool. Now let's have a look at this. So I can go through and work out who the students are. Let's just pick a random. These are the evidence of participation reports. So I don't know what this student's... So look, even down to it, you can see what the feedback is, what they've submitted, any active learning they've done. And even in some of them, and I wish I could show you, I don't think this one's going to be able to show us, you can actually click on the teacher's feedback, and if it's something in e-portfolios or a Word document, it's all in there, and that's what we show to the auditor, who loves it. Another different report, what's this one? Oh, this is all your GPS and I'm not sure whether or not they will have done this, but anyhow, let's give it a whirl. See what we get. It's always fascinating. I should have some default ones, shouldn't I? Let's pick a course, any course. School of Business. Let's just do the whole School of Business. All courses. See what we get. It's always a bit exciting. Yeah, well, no data. So clearly, I've chosen poorly because that course was not in business. Yeah. Anyhow, so you can pull all that data through, which is really cool. The dashboards, this is an example of how it embeds within all the courses. It just sits at the top, and then you can go in and grab your data. So this one here, the course development, clearly they've finished all the parameters that are required for that course development. So this is what I would say a non-bells developed course. It's just done really basically in chunks, but they have to hit each of those key dashboard requirements. It's really changed the way people are developing things within Box Hill, like significantly. So yeah, this one here, you know, the assessment task force not up there. That's cool. The unit outline's not up there. Online activity, there's only one that they have to do. The other thing that the dashboard's changed in terms of our reporting is instead of having 20 assessment tasks, you know, we're saying you can have 4 maximum. And so there's a whole lot of really rich conversations around quality of assessment, so we're not getting this gross over assessment. And what we're also starting to see is that one of the biggest challenges that the Institute faces is around moderation and validation and around the casualisation of the workforce. So in terms of moderation and validation, if the assessment tasks are up there, easy to moderate, easy to validate. And in terms of casualised workforce, if the teachers are setting these courses up, you've got a consistent approach where you're not getting Aramitai or Swinburne or Holmes Glen way, because it's all there. But all this data is reportable at director, centre manager, and so on. So that's been really good. That's been fantastic. The other data, which is really interesting, this is the learner at risk stuff. Gregor's done some great work on that, so's Andrew. This stuff, one of these is just Gizmo. We've just used an existing app. The other one is one that's been customised and created. So we just, every 2 to 3 years, we change what we're reporting on, because I use it to drive change, but the default stuff still stays within Student Web for analytics. What it also means is when the CEO calls me into his office and tells me what's the usage rates at any given time, I've got data across the whole institute. Like last year I was reporting on, this was really interesting data I was reporting on. So I'll have to kill you if you tell anybody, but anyhow, it's worth looking at. It's really interesting.
Compared to ours, it's going to be so impressive.
Yeah, but we've had 7 years to work on this. So I can now tell you percentage of courses with content online, 72.2. This is meaningful content. Percentage of students using Student Web, and so this includes our short courses. So, but you know, we can report on sort of usage stats, percentage using just to access courses, which is, and that's fantastic. Because in the past, a lot of people would go into Student Web and just check their timetable. I didn't want that data. I wanted to know real courses. But it means if 72% of courses, then I can hunt down
the difference. Yeah,
and some of it is around SMART. The complexities around SMART. It's done Gregor and my head in. You'll have 3 courses in SMART, but it's really the one course. But we're reporting zeros against 2 of them. And then here, percentage of students, percentages of staff using Student Web, and this data is really interesting. I mean, what the hell are the rest of them doing? But I pull reports back now and send it through, and I'll show you something else we do too now. And then around dashboards commenced. 90% of all dashboards have been commenced now. Message through loud and clear. They know I'm not going anywhere, back and down. 20% completed, which is good in a year. That's major change in a year. Distinct staff access, so tracking through, that's a lot of staff are actually getting in and using it, students, a lot of, you know, that's fantastic. So it means it's embedded as part of the culture now. That's nearly every single teacher is using Teaching and Learning College and actually going on and using it, which is brilliant. Student access, really high. We've got up to 5,000 students using it a day, which is, for us, is really high. Here, November, we had CAE distinct users, shell access, it's huge. But anyhow, so what the really interesting thing is, this is really interesting thing is we're now collecting data on every single course, how many students are enrolling, and is the staff using it? Is the student using it? So we can now go through every single course and identify those who aren't using Student Web and find out why.
Yeah.
So it's become like institute-wide.
Yep.
Everybody's in serious partnership, and then sometimes there's good reasons.
Yeah, sometimes there will be. Yeah.
You know, as to why they're not using it.
Yeah.
But we can tell you who's using it and where, and then we can also focus. For example, some of these, like Certificate for in Marketing, they are using it, but we have a combined hub for business.
Yeah.
And they all use that. So you've got 892 students using it.
Yeah.
There's only 46 enrolled, but it means all the business students are all using the generic competencies
Yep.
that they've mapped. So, like, some of the data's wrong. So,
Yeah.
but that's okay. We have a story we can tell.
Yes, yes.
And the interesting thing is the CEO was happy to sit down and go through all of this. So it's really interesting data, and I can then work out percentages and give the story that goes with it. So it's the data's been quite broad now, and very, very used across the whole institute, to the point that I now report on a lot of this stuff to the board directly.
Yeah.
Which is very different from when I first started.
Great.
So,
It's good.
a lot of different data.
Yeah, okay.
Is that what you were
That's the sort of thing we
anticipating?
want. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where I want to see, where I think it'd be good to speak is just on those different levels which you addressed.
Yep.
Like, what is the impact for students, for individual teaching staff, for
Yep.
program managers, centre
Yep.
managers,
All of
across the
those.
university?
Absolutely happy to. When do you want me to do it?
When do you want to do it?
When are you starting?
No, I would say started now. It's across the year, so, you know,
I would suggest that you either have me in the next month or you have me in 6 months.
yeah, I like the next month idea.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
While I'm still at Box Hill.
okay.
So let's have a look at, tell me what date, and then I'll tell you.
This is where it gets tricky for me, because...
Give me a broad range of dates. I can give you a couple of days.
Yeah, can I do that
Yeah.
when I get back to the...
Yep.
Because we've got a couple of other people lined up,
Yeah.
and so when you say within the next month, does that mean by the end of May, or when are you...
I'm leaving May the 8th,
Okay.
but Swinburne won't have a problem with me presenting on the topic of learner analytics, and I can use
Yep.
Box Hill as part
Yeah.
of the example. I will still talk about the same thing. I've put forward a very clear vision on where I'm going with Swinburne.
Yep.
They've just gone, great, next 3 years planned, tick.
Yes.
So I can talk about what I've done in the past from Box Hill, and I
Yeah.
can talk about what I'm planning in the future for Swinburne.
Yeah, yeah.
So if it was either get me out there before May 8th, which is probably not realistic, or get me in, give me 2 months to get settled and started, because
Okay.
the first 2 months at Swinburne is going to be me benchmarking data.
Yeah.
My biggest job, and I've told David this, is that I will have a huge amount of data to share on baseline, and then my suggestion is you bring me back in a year's time and let's see if we've done anything. Yeah. So I can share what's been done.
Yeah, that's good. So, May the 8th is the cut-off date then. Okay, I'll see what I can do.
But if
Yeah.
you can't, don't stress. But
No, I won't, but-
Swinburne won't have a problem with me going.
Yeah.
One of the things that they really want me to do, and one of the reasons that they've been keen to get me on board, is they don't want to stop me presenting to other organisations and doing conferences. They want to build the reputation of Swinburne
Yeah.
as quickly as possible, because it's been pretty quiet for a long time, hasn't it?
Yes.
So we want to push it back onto the national stage as a bit of a shaker and a mover.
Very good.
David Coltman, do you know him?
Yeah.
Unitech, New Zealand? Deputy
I do know
CEO
him.
there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where he's come from.
Okay. Good.
Real shaker and mover.
Good.
And then Simon Ofer from RMIT.
Okay. You don't know him. No.
Really interesting group. So,
Yeah.
so very exciting. But I'd love to. Thank you for the honour of asking me.
Well, we'll try and do it that first week of May. Otherwise, 6
Yeah.
months is also good. I mean,
Oh no, it can be 3 months. I just guess what I'm
Okay.
thinking is, if I do it while I'm at RMIT, if I do it while I'm at Swinburne, I would like to then present with something significant to say about Swinburne,
yeah.
because I think then that's vested interest for Swinburne to say yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And so if they can then be part of the story I'm telling, I can talk about where I've been
Yeah,
and what
that
I
could be
did.
good as well. And that works for me. I mean, for me, it has to be around that time, or it has to be later because I'm going to be away. And so
Yeah,
on,
that's cool. Yeah,
yeah.
but and I'm happy to be flexible with that, Howard. You know that.
Yeah.
And it's good. I think it's good. We're starting to see. Like I've just had William Engels out for 3 hours.
Yep.
And presented a whole lot of stuff to them. They got 2 mil.
Yep.
And they wanted a bit of a strategic overview on how I would spend the money.
Yeah.
Happy to do that. But in turn, they're now giving us a huge amount of information on the SMS project.
Yep.
It's lovely to see those networks starting to come back again after they got killed off. Where we're starting to work out how we can help each other again. That's nice.
That's good.
Because our real enemy isn't each other.
No.
Our real enemy is private RTOs and government funding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So,
right. Yeah.
well, that's good. Sounds like you're really happy there.
I am really happy there. It's quite
Sounds
good.
like you found your niche.
in some ways, because yeah, I mean, you know me, and I like to do different things, and it fits well enough.
Which is good.
Yeah, I think it does. So far it's been quite good. Yeah, I'm liked, and I'm on permanent. Like, I've never had a permanent job.
How wow.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah. So.
At Box Hill, just to catch you up, we had 62 people